Kasey, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm Kasey D'Amato. I am an executive coach. So I'm a business advisor and executive life coach. I help purpose-driven business owners build the life of their dreams, build aligned empires between their business and their life.
Awesome. And where does your story begin?
Well, that's a great question. So my story begins, I started as a dermatology professional, a dermatology PA, and practicing in Los Angeles, California. And in my service-based passion, which is my primary passion, I love helping other people. That's why I love being a coach and love what I do. But I got that little entrepreneurial spirit that many of us get. And we think, we're serving people, but what if we could do more? What if there was that one next thing? So I became the manager of the medical practice while I was treating my patients. I had a very high profile celebrity patient following in Los Angeles. And then from there, started a consulting business for other medical businesses, small businesses that didn't understand how to optimize cash flow, didn't understand win-win compensation structures and minimizing turnover and burnout. And, from there, if you're a serial entrepreneur, there's enough, like there's always beyond that. So then I decided that I would start the first natural and medical grade skincare line. So that's a very competitive industry. This was my biggest venture. And I started this in 2010. And we went through multiple different distributions. We raised some capital, went through a few seed rounds, and eventually partnered with someone with global distribution and launched in Europe and South America, and eventually made a kind of soft exit from that business. We're still silent partners. And in doing that journey, I call myself a serial entrepreneur because I've had multiple iterations, reinventions of my professional journey, going from service providing to a consulting business to a global skincare business, now as an executive coach, and kind of studied the patterns of what worked very well and what didn't work very well along my journey, and the multiple, reinventions of myself along the way. And there was one point in time I was doing all of the things at once.
Awesome. Now, was there ever a time that you were really struggling to make a decision and you just were stuck? And how did you get out of it? What was that experience like? You told me you had a story in mind.
Yeah, I think my story related to that question, when you're feeling stuck, I think there's those of us that would title ourselves as overachievers. We can do everything. There's nothing that will hold us back. And in that mindset, especially if we have that serial entrepreneur gene in our blood floating around, we can fall into a trap where we do try to do all the things at once. And that was probably my breaking point, was flying to Europe to launch the product, flying back to LA to see the VIP patient, speaking at a medical conference on how to grow a medical practice all at the same time. And, at this point in time, I just broke, like mentally and physically. There was just too much pressure on my time. I had teams across the board, but, the teams were not optimized in the right way. I had to make a hard decision of what was I going to sell, walk away from, retire from. These were very successful from the outside. All of them were successful from the outside, but internally, for me, it was not sustainable. So what was I going to do? I had the teams, I had the things, but me personally couldn't be the front-facing leader of all of them at once at this point in time. So I had to make a hard decision at that time of which ones were going to go into, just come off my plate altogether. So at this point, I developed a framework that I use to this day now for my own business ventures as well as my clients, which is intentionally compartmentalizing our projects and ventures into either a growth phase, a coast phase, or a contract phase. So for those of us that like to do a lot of things at once, which one of our entities will get the attention for growth? And that's where our primary active energy will go. And which other entities will go into a coast phase, meaning we're going to stabilize with our team. The revenue growth might not be as rapid, but that's okay because our energy is manageable. And which one is going to contract either into a wind down or contract to a smaller state that doesn't require as much energy. And then every 90 to 180 days or even year, reevaluate all of the ventures on our plate. Which ones are we putting into growth, getting all of our attention? Which ones are in kind of a coast, we're stabilizing, they're going to grow slowly, but in a way that's manageable for us, and which ones are going to contract or go away completely. But in my case, I try not to get rid of anything. I try to just contract them down.
So when you say ventures, are these like internal projects for one business, or is it multiple businesses?
Multiple businesses.
So this is, I I didn't realize that you were running a bunch of businesses at once. How many are on your plate at any given time?
Right now, there's 3 plus a real estate portfolio of 4, and then mentoring some startup businesses. So some dabbling and some helping other people.
So I have been slapped on the wrist by probably 5, 6 mentors and other coaches who have told me, because I've got 5 things that are pretty much going on all the time with my businesses as well. And they keep telling me to focus.
Yeah.
They're like, your energy is getting split. You're 20% on all of these.
Yep.
And so it sounds like the solution that you've put in is to adjust the energy levels of each of those businesses.
Yep.
But do you find yourself, I think it's one of the most toxic elements of my personal entrepreneurial journey is
100%.
like for instance, I'll give you an example. We served functional medicine clinics for years and years and years and did well. But Meta started getting real prude with our ads. It's just like, oh, we can't advertise anybody that's ripped or out of shape. It just, we couldn't win.
Yes.
And so during this time, though, we had this peptide provider come to us, and they were like, "Hey, you can white label our products, and you can start your own peptide company."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we were like, "Oh my gosh, we've sold hundreds of millions of dollars of peptides for our clients. Let's just go ahead and spin up a little clinic." And that clinic is now my redheaded stepchild that just lives under the stairs, and we don't allow him to be a wizard. You know what I mean? It stole a bunch of energy, and it's created a bunch of issues. And even though like we kind of put it on coast mode, it keeps stealing energy from us. And so finally we lost a payment processor on it because like cash pay research based peptides is tough for payment processors to want to accept. And so we just kind of like let it live under the stairs for a little bit and not even doing anything with it, kind of.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, we have like a whole infrastructure in that business, and it runs and it operates, and now we have a payment processor. So it's still like going, but like doesn't get our attention. And that's because for myself, I realized that it was stealing from my core business and stifling my growth. So how in the world do you keep it from ripping apart? And like, why not just focus on the one, build it really big and sell it?
Yep.
Instead of doing all of the things.
I think it's great to build the one really big and sell it. Certainly that was my venture with the skincare business. So I definitely love that plan. And I coach and mentor a lot of people with startups for that exact process. There are certain people, myself included, yourself included, we just can't resist. We cannot resist the multiple things. And so, to your point, exactly like with your peptide product, yours might be in coast. It might actually be a little bit in contraction mode. Like it might have slowed down. The revenue might even slow down because it was taking too much energy. So it might actually contract operationally, revenue. Like you cut back the expenses, you cut it, you lean it, the whole thing. Hopefully the profit margin stays the same, but you lean everything way down. That's kind of a contraction phase. That if you're putting something into a contraction phase while you're focusing on growing something else, you grow the other thing, you build it, you sell it, and then you've got this baby that's been in the incubator on life support, I call it. Then you can revisit and you can put the energy in and reignite it. So I like that process a lot. I found that for myself, it helps me significantly to either contract them down or put them in a coast. In a coast mode, you would not reduce revenue or reduce operations. In a coast mode, you would build your management team so that you yourself can step out of the day-to-day operations and you've got people that can navigate exactly the things you're talking about, the payment process or the compliance issues. You've got other leaders in that place that you trust that you might be meeting with them once a month. You might be having a team meeting once a month, but they can deal with the day-to-day operations. The business would still be growing in this phase. It would just be growing a little bit slower because it didn't have as much of your energy in it. But it wouldn't be in a contraction phase like the businesses that occupy a lot of our energy and they have a lot of roadblocks and red tape. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is consuming so much energy. It's going to require more effort. I'm going to have to contract it down for now. And then I'm going to keep it in this contracted phase on life support. I'm going to revisit it 90 days, 6 months, a year, but I'm not going to kill it. I'm just going to contract it down so it's there for later.
How do you, there it is over there, and it's contracted. and it's super
Yeah.
small. It's in the
Yeah.
incubator, and I
Right.
pray for it every day. It's on its meds.
Right.
So morbid. So how do you handle your stress? So cortisol in the body, there's a
Yeah.
laundry list of things that have been prescribed to help people
Yep.
handle stress. But for yourself, when shit's hitting the fan and you are in survive mode, trying to call the shots and motivate your team, how do you get your head out of the clouds and lock in and make good decisions? How does that process work for you? And is there a time where that happened, where just everything was falling apart and you were able to just like do your process, hit your mantra, go on your walk, do whatever it is that you did, say your prayer, levitate off the ground, and you were able to just like lock in and solve it?
Yeah. So, I think it's absolutely critical that you have what I call a Polaris point. You know what the North Star vision is. So if you have a Polaris point, you have your North Star vision. If you start getting off track, whether it is team, if it's revenue, if it's operations, if it's the product, if it's a service, whatever it is not going well, the client experience, whatever it is, if you can hold true to that North Star Polaris point, and this is kind of where you want your business and your life to be aligned in like a 3 year, I typically do it in a 3 year mark. In 3 years, I want my business to be this, I want my lifestyle to be this, and I want this X to be my legacy and my purpose, the impact that I'm leaving on the world. So we've got sort of the monetary situation with the business, we've got the time impact on the lifestyle, and we've got the greater good impact on how we are contributing to future generations or to our industry in ways that we're leaving a positive footprint. In 3 years, this is what I want to be, the legacy I want. So now I reverse engineer it into quarters, and each quarter I look at, okay, what's going well and what is a hot mess shit show and what needs to be dialed in and fixed. And right away, I'm looking at metrics, I'm looking at team performance, and I'm leaning on my team of who's, which I recommend 3 levels of who's, which is your team of mentors, coaches, advisors, people that have done it before you. It could be in your industry or it could just be life or business experience in general. They just have a level of wisdom, right? So you've got a collection of people there, a collection of people that are your peers, colleagues, like going through it together, like your sounding board of like, in your industry, like if we're talking about Meta, right? Like people that are kind of going through it, like, oh my gosh, this compliance, how we work around this stuff. And then the team of people that are working for us. And I'm rebalancing those 3 levels of who's at all times, because if you have your Polaris point locked in, exactly what you're building in 3 years, business, lifestyle, impact, and legacy, and you have your support of your 3 level of who's, and you're constantly rebalancing your 3 level of who's, you're insulated. When you have the problems, when you have the burnout, when you hit the roadblocks, when you have the challenges, you're immediately resetting. Boom. Is this aligned with my Polaris point? Who am I calling right now that can give me the right guidance to get past this and get past it quickly? Because things never go smooth. The name of the game is how resilient and how quick can we bounce back and overcome them? And who are the right people in our corner, the right support system? I like a board. I always have operated with a board of advisors. So if I don't have a formal board of advisors, I have sort of an informal. So typically I have like 3 to 4 people on the Rolodex that I will bounce the ideas off of. Like, this is my challenge. These are my crossroads, what I'm thinking. What's your perspective, your perspective, your perspective? And I take it into account and make my decision to move on.
Do you feel comfortable sharing your Polaris point, your 3 years? Or
Oh, my
those
Polaris point. Oh, my
Yeah.
Polaris points.
You said
So,
your business, your
mhm,
lifestyle, and your legacy
and the impact,
and
impact.
impact. So there's 4 areas. Okay.
Yeah, so the legacy and impact are very much intertwined, because that's very much really what you want to be remembered for, because we know it's not just about the business growth. It's not just about the money. We all know people that have successful businesses, have the money, and they're miserable, as you can imagine. We know that's not the answer. We know the lifestyle alone isn't the answer, because we know people that are traveling the world, backpacking. They're totally free, right? But then they maybe don't have the financial support that they want, financial security, or maybe they're not leaving the legacy and the impact that they want. So to me, the definition of fulfillment and success is you're really balancing these 3 things where you're feeling secure, you don't have insecurity around your financial situation, you feel financially free, you feel you have a level of time freedom, and you also feel like you are leaving that impact on your industry. So for me, I have a goal about impacting founders, purpose-driven founders. I want to impact short term, I want to impact 1 million. Longer term, I want to impact 10 million founders in a way where they can find a more balanced, holistic life. And this doesn't mean my client community. I mean, there's no way I could work with that many people, but it's speaking on podcasts. It's sharing my experience. Between multiple industries, there are trends and patterns that I can recognize. And coming from a medical provider with a health background, I have an interesting perspective on your health in the journey. And so my number 3 and my Polaris point is to impact purpose-driven founders that you can build bigger than you think. You can get past the roadblocks faster than you think with this installation of the who's, with the resetting every 90 days, paying attention to your metrics and obviously your health and your goals. Business standpoint, I've got different goals for the different business ventures, right? So some are my active businesses, this business, my personal brand business, also my medical consulting business, and I have a real estate portfolio. So each one has its own goals around that. And for lifestyle, without doubt, I changed all of this in the late, between 2018 and 19. So since 2020 or 2021, I have developed the lifestyle, like the time. I have the time freedom. I know how to balance time. I know how to grow businesses and balance time. Prior to that, not as much, but now I do. So that is not necessarily what I'm working towards as much as my impact right now.
Thank you for being willing to share your own personal Polaris points. Kasey, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so I am mostly on LinkedIn and Instagram at Kasey D'Amato. If you DM me, I'd love to hear what's going on in your business journey, your holistic journey between your business and your life. And if there's anything I can do to support, I nerd out and geek out over talking about business strategy and how to balance it all. So feel free to shoot me a DM anytime.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
This has been the Pulse Ox podcast. Please, if you found this episode valuable, give us a like on Spotify and share it with a friend.